In the vast, unforgiving Namibian desert, survival isn't just a matter of strength. It's a matter of instinct, courage, and sometimes unexpected alliances. When a tiny injured lion cub appeared at her research station window, Olivia Harlow faced a choice that could change both their lives forever. What she didn't know was that this encounter would reveal secrets of the wild she never imagined, challenge everything she believed about desert lions, and put her own life in jeopardy. If you love stories of courage, wildlife, and the extraordinary bonds between humans and animals, stay with me. Like, comment your thoughts, and follow for the full adventure in the desert with Olivia and the cub. In the vast, unforgiving Namibian desert, survival isn't just a matter of strength. It's a matter of instinct, courage, and sometimes unexpected alliances. When a tiny injured lion cub appeared at her research station window, Olivia Harlow faced a choice that could change both their lives forever. What she didn't know was that this encounter would reveal secrets of the world she never imagined, challenge everything she believed about desert lions, and put her own life in jeopardy. If you love stories of courage, wildlife, and the extraordinary bonds between humans and animals, stay with me. Like, comment your thoughts, and follow for the full adventure in the desert with Olivia and the cub. The late afternoon sun cast long, molten shadows over the endless dunes, turning them into a sea of gold and rust. Olivia pushed a dark strand of hair behind her ear, her eyes scanning the satellite images on her laptop. For the past 18 months, she had devoted herself to understanding the elusive desert lions, creatures that had adapted to survive in a landscape where life was scarce and each day was a test of resilience. Unlike their savanna cousins, these lions could traverse vast distances without water, hunt the unexpected, and endure extreme heat that would cripple other animals. But lately, the patterns she observed disturbed her. The alpha male of the pride she was studying had fallen to poachers weeks ago, leaving the remaining lionesses and cubs disoriented, wandering dangerously close to human settlements. Any livestock they might target could provoke retaliatory killings, a cruel cycle that endangered the fragile desert lion population. Olivia's stomach tightened as she reviewed her data. LF-17, the pride's dominant female, had approached within 2 kilometers of a small village the previous night. If the female hunted there, it would signal a dangerous escalation of human-wildlife conflict. Her thoughts were interrupted by the soft vibration of her satellite phone. Thomas, her partner, had been delayed by a flash flood on the only road connecting them to the nearest town. Road washed out, stuck in Fontaine-sur-Marne. At least 3 days, the message read. Olivia exhaled slowly. Even brief isolation in this desert was risky. Flash floods were paradoxically sudden, devastating, and yet fleeting, leaving behind damage that compounded the challenges of research in such a remote location. She replied quickly, "Enough for a week. Stay safe." Setting the phone aside, she glanced at her water supply. It was adequate for now, but with the solar panels underperforming due to dust storms, she would have to ration carefully. The desert evening fell quickly, carrying with it a sharp chill that cut through her lightweight clothing. Olivia prepared a simple meal of rehydrated stew, but the data on her screen refused to leave her mind. Then came the sound, faint, almost imperceptible, scratching at the western window. She paused, fork halfway to her mouth, straining to listen. The sound repeated, more distinct now, accompanied by a tiny whimper. Caution dictated she should ignore it. Wild animals rarely approach the elevated research station, yet something primal stirred in her chest. She grabbed the heavy-duty flashlight by the door and approached the source of the noise. When she illuminated the narrow ledge outside, her breath caught. A lion cub, no older than 4 months, trembled on the thin ledge. Its fur was patchy, tattered, and dusty, its ribs and hip bones protruding sharply beneath the skin. One paw hung awkwardly, swollen and red from injury. How did you get here?" Olivia whispered, moving slowly. The desert was vast. The nearest pride, according to her data, was at least 15 kilometers away. The cub's weak scratching at the window and pitiful cry bypassed all scientific reasoning, stirring something deeply human inside her. Empathy. She knew the protocols. Wild animals should not be interfered with, especially young cubs who might be reclaimed by their mothers. Intervening could condemn it to death or provoke retaliation from a protective adult. Yet the sight of the tiny, suffering creature made rational arguments seem cruel. Olivia retreated briefly, binoculars in hand, canning the darkening landscape. No adult lions appeared, but desert lions were masters of camouflage. The cub's whimpers grew louder, more desperate, drawing Olivia back. A decision crystallized in her mind, not born of protocol, but necessity. She fetched a spare research blanket, approaching with measured movements. The cub flinched but made no attempt to escape, likely too weak to fight. With care, she wrapped it and lifted it through the window, closing it quickly behind her. Inside, under the harsh beam of the work lamp, the reality of the cub's condition became undeniable. It was malnourished, dehydrated, and its paw was not merely swollen. It was infected, a jagged wound possibly caused by a trap. Normally, wild predators resisted human touch with fierce aggression. Yet this cub remained unnaturally calm, almost aware. Olivia's mind raced. Could it have had previous human contact? Its amber eyes seemed to study her as if measuring the intentions behind every gesture. She cleaned the wound carefully, applied antibiotic ointment, and prepared a makeshift rehydration solution mixed with a little protein powder. The cub lapped at it eagerly, demonstrating an intelligence and trust that startled Olivia. It wasn't just weakness, it was recognition of aid, a subtle communication of need. As she placed the cub in a secure corner with a pile of blankets, she felt the first pang of a deeper connection. The night stretched on, punctuated by the desert's whispering winds and occasional distant calls of wildlife. By pre-dawn, Olivia was awoken by soft whimpers. The cub's breathing was shallow, its small frame shivering as fever began to set in. Supplies were limited, designed for humans, not animals. She prepared a diluted dose of broad-spectrum antibiotics, knowing the risk, but recognizing that without intervention, sepsis would set in within hours. Her hands moved with both precision and urgency, every motion a mix of medical care and cautious affection. It was during this careful examination that Olivia noticed something extraordinary, a small, unusual mark behind the cub's left ear. Leaning closer, she realized it was a tattoo, 3 digits inked black. Her heart pounded. The Desert Lion Conservation Project did not tattoo lions. They used collars or microchips. This suggested human interference far beyond normal observation. She called Dr. Backer, her voice low but steady, as she explained the situation. After a long pause, he confirmed her fears. The cub was evidence of an illegal breeding operation supplying exotic pets in certain hunting facilities. Olivia's remote station had become entangled in something far larger than a simple rescue. Her pulse quickened as the morning sun began to glow over the dunes. Suddenly, a distant vibration from her perimeter sensors caught her attention. A vehicle was approaching, fast, aggressive, unannounced. Protocol dictated, waiting for identification, but this was no ordinary visitor. Olivia acted quickly, packing essential supplies, including the cub wrapped carefully in the blanket. The desert offered concealment if she moved wisely. Using her knowledge of terrain, she navigated toward a dry riverbed where sparse vegetation and rock outcroppings provided both cover and shelter. For the next 2 hours, Olivia moved through the harsh landscape with precision, keeping low, navigating by instinct honed over months of fieldwork. The cub remained calm in the backpack, its amber eyes alert, almost guiding her movements. Behind them, the off-road vehicle stopped at the station. Voices rang out, demanding and aggressive. Olivia's chest tightened, but the cub's presence reminded her why she had chosen this path. Eventually, they reached a small overhang, providing brief respite from the scorching sun. The cub, though exhausted, licked water from her cupped hand, its tiny body trembling, but resilient. Olivia studied the creature, recognizing an intelligence and awareness that went far beyond the ordinary. This was no simple rescue. It was the beginning of a mystery that would challenge everything she knew about desert lions, the cruelty of the exotic pet trade, and the unexpected alliances that sometimes form in the harshest corners of the world. Olivia crouched beside the cub, the first pale light of dawn filtering through the dust-streaked windows of the research station. The desert's chill had faded with the rising sun, replaced by the heat that would become oppressive within hours. She could feel the small body trembling under her hands, not just from fever, but from the strain of travel and injury. The rehydration solution she had given it the night before had sustained it, but its lethargy remained worrisome. She knew this was only the beginning. Every hour counted if the cub was to survive. Her training as a field researcher pushed her mind into overdrive. She took detailed notes of the cub's condition, documenting breathing patterns, temperature, and the state of the paw wound. Yet something gnawed at her, a sense that the situation was not merely biological, not merely about survival. There was intelligence in the cub's eyes, a depth of awareness she had rarely seen in young lions. It would flinch when she moved too abruptly, but it also seemed to anticipate her motions, adjusting subtly as if testing her intentions. Then her gaze fell again on the mark behind the cub's ear. 3 digits, precise, cleanly inked. Olivia held the cub under the bright inspection lamp, her heart pounding. The tattoo was not a natural pattern, nor the result of injury. It was deliberate human intervention. Desert lions were wild and cautious. Any sign of human handling would have left the cub wary, defensive, or aggressive. This one had none of the fear typical of such encounters. The implications were staggering. She dialed Dr. Backer's satellite number, her voice steady despite a knot of anxiety twisting in her stomach. After recounting the cub's condition and showing him a photo of the tattoo, she waited. The line was silent for an agonizing moment before his gruff, cautious voice finally spoke. Olivia, this is serious. That cub isn't from any natural pride we monitor. It's part of a trafficking operation we've been tracking for months. They breed lions in captivity, mark them, and supply them to private collectors and hunting facilities. Illegal, of course, but highly profitable. Olivia pressed the cub gently against her chest, processing the information. Weeks earlier, she had feared only natural threats: drought, hunger, and the harsh desert. Now human malice loomed just as large. Her sanctuary, her station, had become a waypoint in a chain of exploitation stretching beyond Namibia, possibly across continents. How had the cub ended up here, miles from roads and known transport routes? That question remained unanswered, hanging over her like the heavy morning sun. No time to dwell. A soft vibration on her perimeter sensors caught her attention. She froze, listening. The desert air seemed to hold its breath with her. The sensors indicated a vehicle approaching, fast, direct, and unannounced. Olivia's mind raced. They were not researchers, not tourists. These were the traffickers, undoubtedly aware of the cub's importance. Every instinct screamed that staying in the open station was perilous. She needed cover, concealment, and a plan. Packing efficiently, she placed the cub carefully in her field backpack, keeping it partially unzipped for air. The cub stirred, aware but unafraid, its small amber eyes reflecting recognition as though understanding the urgency. Olivia led them south, navigating through the dry riverbed she had mapped during months of fieldwork. Sparse shrubs, occasional boulders, and jagged terrain offered cover. Each step was calculated. The desert, while familiar, was unforgiving. One misstep could mean discovery, or worse. The approaching vehicle stopped near the station. Voices carried on the wind, aggressive and commanding, but the open desert distorted the sound, masking their exact location. Olivia's pulse quickened as the cub, seemingly sensing the danger, remained unusually calm. It was a fragile calm, born of weakness, but also, she realized, of instinct honed by captivity. The markings and behavior suggested more than survival. Someone had trained it subtly in ways she did not yet comprehend. 2 hours passed under the rising sun. Heat rose off the sand in shimmering waves, radiating up to sear her neck and shoulders. The cub's small body grew heavier in her backpack as she trudged, but it did not cry or struggle. Olivia's mind worked rapidly, balancing exhaustion with strategy. She had considered multiple options: attempt to hide in the desert, return to the station, or seek the overhangs and shallow caves she had identified during field surveys. The latter offered concealment and shade, imperative for survival in the blistering desert. Eventually, she reached a shallow cave nestled in the riverbed's rock formations. Sweat streaked her face as she lowered herself carefully, extracting the cub and letting it settle on the cool rock. It lapped water from her cupped hands with quiet urgency, eyes closed briefly in relief. Olivia studied the surrounding terrain. The cave offered cover, but it was not perfect. Multiple escape routes existed, yet the rocky shadows were riddled with potential hazards: uneven footing, loose stones, and the possibility of pursuers discovering their location. Sitting beside the cub, Olivia examined it more closely. Its paw, swollen and infected, demanded care beyond her limited supplies. The cub's breathing remained shallow, and its eyes held a desperate clarity. It was not fear, not confusion, but calculation. This was a predator in miniature, aware of its vulnerability, yet responding to her with an intelligence that was unsettling. Olivia realized then that this cub was not simply a victim of circumstance. It had been deliberately trained, or at least conditioned, to navigate human interaction. That explained its unusual behavior at the window hours earlier. She prepared a diluted antibiotic dose, calculating with care. Improper dosage could harm, but inaction guaranteed death. As the cub drank the solution, Olivia allowed herself a moment to reflect. The implications of the tattoo, combined with its advanced behavioral responses, suggested a system of organized wildlife trafficking operating with precision. The cub had likely been separated from its mother weeks ago, its movements monitored, its survival ensured for profit. This small creature had been engineered to survive against the odds, and now she was entwined in its fate. Movement outside drew her attention. The desert was alive with sound, distorted by heat waves and shifting sands, but she caught the subtle crunch of tires and voices filtered through the terrain. The traffickers were searching methodically, likely using their knowledge of her station and recent sightings of the cub to triangulate their path. Olivia's heart raced. She could attempt to flee further into the desert, but the midday sun would become a lethal enemy. The shallow cave offered shade, concealment, and time to think. The cub, sensing her tension, nudged her hand with its head, as if urging her to focus. Olivia studied its behavior. It seemed to understand more than expected, coordinating subtly with her movements. The idea seemed impossible, yet the evidence was undeniable. It anticipated threats, adjusted its position in tandem with her actions, and avoided revealing their precise location. There was an eerie intelligence at work here, a testament to human interference and natural cunning combined. Minutes later, voices approached the cave's entrance. Olivia extinguished her flashlight, plunging them into semi-darkness. She watched the cub, noting its readiness to move if necessary. The traffickers entered, searching with practiced thoroughness, speaking in a language she partially understood, Arabic interspersed with broken English. They called to the cub, coaxing it with false tones, but the creature remained hidden, seemingly understanding both human intention and opportunity. Olivia realized this was her chance. The satellite communication device she had discovered the previous day, buried among debris and supplies, could transmit a distress signal. It might be her only link to help before the traffickers escalated their search. Carefully, she maneuvered toward it, the cub following silently. Its limp and small size belied a level of cooperation and comprehension that stunned her. Together, they were a team, moving through shadows and timing each step to the traffickers' distractions. Activating the device, she input the emergency frequency used for regional conservation operations. Her hands trembled slightly, but she kept her voice whisper low as she transmitted coordinates, explaining the presence of traffickers and evidence of illegal activity, emphasizing the cub's tattoo as a key identifier. A faint acknowledgement came through. The conservation team had received it. Relief surged, but it was tempered by the awareness that discovery could come at any second. For now, the cave offered shelter. For now, the cub and Olivia had survived the immediate threat. But as she sat in the semi-darkness, observing its calm, calculated gaze, she understood that this was only the beginning. The cub's intelligence, its prior human interaction, and the urgency of the approaching traffickers would push them both into a confrontation that neither desert nor protocol could fully prepare them for. And in that moment, Olivia realized with stark clarity that the desert had given her not just a rescue mission, but a puzzle, a mystery, and a test of human courage, intellect, and empathy against the backdrop of nature and criminal intent. The cub pressed close to Olivia's side as she navigated the rocky terrain deeper into the dry riverbed. The desert sun climbed relentlessly, casting its oppressive heat across the landscape. Sweat ran down her face, stinging her eyes, yet she remained focused. Every step was calculated, every shadow and boulder a potential shield against the approaching threat. The vehicle had stopped somewhere behind the ridges, the sounds of voices calling for her, and the cub carried faintly on the wind. Olivia knew the traffickers were organized, familiar with tracking animals, and determined to reclaim their property. She had no margin for error. As they rounded a cluster of boulders, the cub paused, ears twitching. It limped ahead with surprising agility, moving deliberately toward a narrow, shadowed passage Olivia had not previously marked on her maps. The opening was partially concealed by overhanging rocks, a shallow indentation in the riverbed that hinted at further shelter beyond. Heart pounding, Olivia followed, crouching low. The passage narrowed as they entered, walls pressing close, but a faint coolness brushed against her skin. Relief mingled with tension. The cub knew the way, and she was trusting its guidance entirely. After several dozen meters, the passage opened into a cavernous chamber. Olivia gasped, momentarily distracted by the unexpected breadth of the space. The chamber was roughly circular, 15 meters across, with natural shafts in the ceiling, allowing beams of sunlight to pierce the semi-darkness. Dust motes danced in the golden light, giving the impression of movement in the air itself. But it was not the size that stunned her most. It was the walls. Hundreds of rock paintings, preserved in faded ochre, black, and white pigments, depicted hunting scenes, ritualistic gatherings, and abstract human and animal figures. Her academic training surged forward. This was a prehistoric gallery, untouched and undocumented, a treasure beyond her imagination. Yet even as awe threatened to overtake her, Olivia's focus returned to the present. Something about the cave's floor betrayed recent human activity. Scuff marks were visible in the fine dust, as though someone had moved deliberately across the chamber. In one corner, a metal cage, roughly the size of the cub, sat with its door ajar. Nearby were empty water bottles, food wrappers, and a first aid kit with Chinese labeling. Whoever had been here recently had used the cave as more than temporary shelter. They had established a holding site, possibly for wildlife trafficking. The cub, still alert despite exhaustion, approached the cage and sniffed at it, letting out a low, rumbling sound. Olivia froze. It wasn't merely curiosity. There was recognition in the gesture, a connection between the cub and this hidden space. Her mind raced. The cub had not stumbled into her station randomly. It had escaped from here, or a location like it, and instinctively sought human assistance rather than returning to captivity. That understanding of its options suggested intelligence far beyond what she had observed in wild desert cubs. As she moved through the chamber, Olivia noticed more evidence. Empty crates stacked against a wall, faint shipping labels with partial addresses from Abu Dhabi, and a small satellite communications device tucked behind a rock. This was no makeshift holding area. It was a sophisticated staging point for illicit operations. Whoever controlled it had carefully chosen a location hidden from aerial surveillance, but accessible to anyone with precise knowledge of the desert terrain. The cube-like control over logistics and concealment was alarming, confirming that the trafficking operation was deliberate, well-funded, and highly organized. Voices echoed from the entrance of the cave. Olivia froze, pressing the cub close, letting the shadows envelop them. Two men entered, powerful flashlights cutting through the dim chamber. They called to the cub, using tones meant to soothe and deceive, but the creature did not respond. Instead, it moved with Olivia in perfect coordination, remaining hidden, even mimicking panic from the opposite side of the chamber to create a diversion. Olivia's jaw tightened. She had read about animal intelligence and social learning, but this was coordination, almost tactical. Realization hit her like a physical blow. This cub had been born in captivity, trained subtly to navigate human interactions, aware of threats and capable of manipulating behavior to its advantage. The intelligence she had glimpsed earlier at her station window was not natural alone. It was shaped by human intervention. Every small movement, every silent communication between cub and human was proof of a system designed to produce cunning, observant animals ready for trafficking. Olivia held her breath as the traffickers searched systematically, speaking in Arabic with occasional clipped English phrases. The men referenced shipment schedules, replacement costs, and dates for collection. She did not understand all of it, but enough fragments confirmed what she had suspected. The cub was highly valuable, and the operation was ongoing. A surge of urgency coursed through her. She could not rely on waiting for outside help. The nearest conservation team was hours away. Action had to be immediate. The satellite communications device was now her only lifeline. Olivia moved cautiously through the shadows, the cub following with minimal sound. Its limp had worsened slightly, but it adjusted its gait, using the uneven ground to maintain stealth. She activated the device, tested the signal, and sent an encrypted emergency message to the regional conservation network. Coordinates, situation summary, details about the cub's tattoo, and the presence of at least 2 suspects. All were transmitted. Her fingers lingered over the device for a moment, hoping the signal had reached the right eyes. Time stretched as the traffickers' search intensified. One of them, holding a powerful flashlight, moved suspiciously close to where Olivia crouched. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but she remained utterly still, blending with the shadows. The cub, seemingly sensing the increased threat, nudged a small stone with its paw, redirecting attention and providing the precise distraction Olivia needed. The realization left her breathless. The cub was actively participating in its own rescue, understanding enough of the situation to manipulate outcomes in their favor. Minutes later, a faint signal returned, a confirmation from conservation authorities. The Namibian anti-poaching unit was en route, with an estimated arrival within 20 minutes. Olivia allowed herself a small surge of relief, though it was tempered by the awareness that the traffickers were growing increasingly frantic. One of the men had moved closer to the cub's diversion, shouting instructions and revealing frustration in his voice. The value of the cub had clearly been underestimated. They had invested too much to lose it. Olivia adjusted her strategy. Using her knowledge of the cave's structure, she moved silently to a narrow passageway leading deeper into the rock formation, the cub trailing behind. Each step was deliberate, keeping to shadows and minimizing noise. She noticed subtle signs that other passages could exist. Small indentations in the wall, airflow currents, slight variations in dust patterns. The cave system was more extensive than maps had indicated, and she realized that if she and the cub could navigate further, they might gain significant advantage over their pursuers. The cub paused near a shaft of sunlight filtering through the ceiling. Olivia observed it carefully. Its amber eyes reflected both instinctive caution and a remarkable ability to assess danger. It was almost as if it were weighing the options, calculating risks, and guiding her along the safest route. Olivia marveled at the sophistication of its behavior. The markings on its ear, once a simple clue to human involvement, now seemed symbolic of an entirely controlled and deliberate upbringing, preparing it for a life in captivity and exploitation. And as the voices outside grew louder, Olivia whispered, "We have to move now." The cub responded with a low, almost deliberate yowl, designed to mimic distress from the opposite side of the chamber. The men reacted, shifting their attention, giving Olivia the precious seconds she needed to advance further into the cave system. Every heartbeat was tense, every step critical. Yet the cub remained alert, moving with deliberate precision. Olivia realized that this was no longer just a rescue. The cub's intelligence, human conditioning, and tactical behavior had turned a simple flight into a calculated game of strategy against the traffickers. The desert, the cave, and the cub's guidance became intertwined in a survival equation she had never before encountered. The implications for wildlife research were staggering. Cognition, problem solving, and interspecies cooperation, previously thought to be limited in lions, were now on vivid display before her. The passage ahead narrowed again, cooler air brushing against her face, offering a brief reprieve from the desert heat. Olivia pressed the cub close, whispering softly, "Just a little further. Help is coming." Its response was subtle but unmistakable. A gentle nudge against her hand, a tiny rumble of agreement, and a readiness to follow through the darkness. Together they advanced deeper into the cave, shadows masking their movements, each aware of the high stakes. For the first time, Olivia allowed herself to fully comprehend the scope of what she was witnessing. This cub was not merely a victim. It was a partner, trained, intelligent, and extraordinarily aware. And in that realization, a profound respect and deepening bond formed between researcher and animal, a bond that would carry them through the dangers that still lay ahead. The narrow passage opened gradually, revealing the harsh, blinding light of the Namibian desert. Olivia squinted against the brilliance, shielding her eyes as she carefully emerged from the rocky shelter, the cubs secured in her field pack. Every instinct screamed caution. The traffickers could be anywhere in the vicinity, their off-road vehicle likely hidden behind dunes or boulders, watching for any sign of movement. Sweat coated her brow, and her muscles ached from hours of navigating uneven terrain. Yet, for all the danger, the cub remained calm, its small paws tucked against her chest, its amber eyes scanning the open expanse as though aware of the stakes surrounding them. Her plan was simple but perilous. Move to the dry riverbed's scattered boulders for cover, avoid direct sight lines, and wait for the anti-poaching unit. The desert offered both exposure and opportunity. One wrong step could betray their location, but every rock and shadow provided concealment if used wisely. Olivia's mind raced, calculating distances, the cub's safety, and the trajectory of potential pursuers. The silence of the desert, once peaceful, now felt oppressive, a tense pause before disaster or salvation. Suddenly, movement caught her eye, a figure silhouetted against the dunes, standing rigid beside the off-road vehicle. Another appeared on foot, scanning the terrain. Olivia froze, heart hammering. She adjusted the pack, ensuring the cub remained hidden and unthreatened. The animals, even young cubs, sensed danger. She could feel the tiny heart beating rapidly against her ribs. The men were trained, organized, and ruthless. Olivia had no weapon beyond her knowledge of the landscape, the cub's intelligence, and her wits. Instinct guided her steps. She moved low, keeping to shadows, directing herself toward the scattered rock formations she had identified earlier. The cub shifted slightly but did not cry or struggle, following her silently. Its behavior was precise, almost as if it understood the terrain and the human threats better than she did. Each time she paused to assess their surroundings, it mirrored her caution, reinforcing the sense that this was no ordinary animal. It was a partner, a collaborator in survival. Approaching a slight incline, Olivia froze again. Ahead at the mouth of the riverbed, a third figure blocked their path. The man's presence was immediate, intimidating, and unmistakably hostile. Olivia's pulse surged. The cub's body tensed in recognition of the threat, letting out a low, guttural growl. That single sound, small as it was, seemed to amplify across the open space, echoing against the dunes. The man's hand froze mid-motion, as if registering an instinctual warning he did not yet understand. Then came a sound so powerful it seemed to vibrate the air itself, a roar deep and resonant, cutting across the desert with precision. Olivia's gaze shot upward. On a ridge above, a lioness appeared, her golden fur gleaming in the afternoon sun. Her posture was commanding, poised, and immediately protective. Behind her, the forms of additional lions emerged, moving with deliberate coordination, positioning themselves between the cub, Olivia, and the traffickers. Olivia's breath caught. The realization hit her with staggering clarity. The lioness was the cub's mother. The reunion was instinctual, precise, and awe-inspiring. The cub let out a contact call, a sound she had learned in her field observations to signal recognition among pride members. The response was immediate, a deep, rumbling acknowledgement from the lioness, confirming the bond Olivia had suspected but had no way of proving until this moment. The trafficker's hesitation proved fatal. As he lunged forward with a knife, the lioness charged, positioning herself decisively between him and Olivia. Her movement was both protective and precise, a demonstration of raw power and maternal instinct. The man's attack was halted mid-motion, and the consequences were swift and decisive. Within moments, the lioness had neutralized the immediate threat, forcing the man to retreat, his confidence shattered by the sheer presence of nature's apex predator. From the cave's entrance, the other two traffickers emerged, disoriented and unsure. The remaining lions, strategically positioned, advanced with silent coordination. Olivia watched in stunned awe as the pride executed a natural but coordinated maneuver, driving the intruders away without unnecessary aggression toward her or the cub. The traffickers, faced with a force they could neither predict nor counter, surrendered to the primal authority of the desert's rulers. When the Namibian anti-poaching unit arrived minutes later, they encountered an extraordinary scene. Olivia sat calmly at the riverbed's edge, documenting the situation with her camera, while the cub and its mother were safely within the pride's protective circle. The unit moved in with precision, securing evidence, photographing the crime scene, and recording witness statements. The cave system and surrounding area were identified as a staging ground for illegal wildlife trafficking, not just of lions but also leopards, cheetahs, and even rare desert elephants. The cub's tattoo was a crucial evidence, revealing the structured methods of this illicit network and linking it to international buyers. The scientific implications of the encounter were profound. Olivia noted every behavioral nuance: the cub's coordinated diversion tactics, its subtle communication with her, and the mother's precise, protective intervention. Such intelligence, problem-solving, and spatial memory in lions had rarely been documented in the wild, particularly under circumstances involving complex human threats. It was a case study in cognition, survival, and the intricate bonds between mother and offspring in extreme environments. Months passed. The cub, now larger and healthier, resided in a specialized enclosure at the Namibian Wildlife Sanctuary, alongside others rescued from the same trafficking network. Its mother remained nearby, maintaining vigilance despite the security of the facility. While release into the wild was no longer viable due to human habituation and the dangers posed by proximity to humans, the cub's life had been transformed from imminent death to relative safety. Olivia observed from a distance, documenting behavior for ongoing research and conservation efforts. The mother lioness, though physically contained by the sanctuary's design, continued to demonstrate remarkable awareness. Her golden eyes often found Olivia's location, a subtle acknowledgement of their shared history and survival. It was more than recognition, it was understanding, a silent communication forged in the crucible of danger, trust, and instinctual coordination. Olivia reflected on the journey from that first night, the scratching at the window, the desperate cry of a vulnerable cub, and the chain of events that had led them through desert heat, rocky terrain, and criminal threat. She had entered the field as a scientist seeking knowledge and emerged with insight into cognition, survival, and the unbreakable bonds of trust across species. The desert had tested her, challenged her, and ultimately rewarded her with a glimpse into the extraordinary capacities of both human and animal. Even in the controlled environment of the sanctuary, the lessons endured. Olivia's research would now include unprecedented observations of interspecies cooperation, adaptive problem-solving, and communication under duress. These insights promise to inform conservation strategies, enrich scientific understanding, and inspire future protection measures for desert lions and other endangered wildlife. The sun dipped low over the Namibian horizon, painting the sky in bands of orange, pink, and gold. Olivia stood at the sanctuary window, watching the cub play with its companions, mother nearby, ever vigilant. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "Still watching out for me." The lioness responded with a gentle chuffing sound, the same vocalization the cub had used at her station weeks ago, a connection reaffirmed, enduring, and profound. In that moment, Olivia understood the depth of survival, trust, and intelligence. The desert had revealed more than a story of rescue. It had revealed a lesson about resilience, the unexpected alliances between humans and animals, and the extraordinary lengths nature would go to protect its own. She smiled, a quiet acknowledgement of the journey they had survived together, knowing that these lessons would shape her work, her understanding, and her connection to the wild forever. The cub's life, once teetering on the edge of death, was now a testament to courage, intuition, and the intricate web of survival that connected all living things. From the sands of the Namibian desert to the protected sanctuary, the bond forged in desperation had endured, a reminder of the extraordinary possibilities that arise when empathy, intelligence, and action converge. The story concluded not with a single act of heroism, but with the ongoing vigilance and cooperation of creatures united by instinct and experience. Olivia, the cub, and the lioness had weathered danger, deception, and the cruelty of human greed. In their survival lay a message that even in the harshest conditions, life could find a way, and that trust, intelligence, and courage were forces as formidable as the desert itself. Olivia's journey in the harsh Namibian desert had begun as a scientific pursuit, a mission to observe and protect one of the planet's most resilient predators. Yet it became something far greater, a story of courage, unexpected alliances, and the extraordinary intelligence of the natural world. From the desperate cries of a tiny abandoned cub to the precise intervention of its mother, Olivia witnessed the remarkable capabilities of lions, their memory, their problem-solving, and their deep, unspoken bonds. She learned that survival is never just about strength. It is about connection, trust, and the courage to act when the stakes are highest. The cub, once on the brink of death, now thrived in a sanctuary, its mother watching over it with unwavering vigilance. Olivia's careful documentation of their behavior and the trafficking operation not only ensured justice, but also enriched scientific understanding, offering insights into cognition and interspecies cooperation that would influence conservation strategies for years to come. This story reminds us that even in the most unforgiving places, empathy, knowledge, and quick thinking can make the difference between life and death. It is a testament to the enduring bond between humans and animals, the resilience of nature, and the impact that one person can have when guided by compassion and purpose. If you were moved by Olivia's journey and inspired by the incredible intelligence of the desert lions, don't just watch, join the movement. Follow for more stories of wildlife, survival, and the extraordinary ways humans and animals connect. Comment your thoughts, share this story, and be part of protecting the wild and the remarkable creatures that inhabit it.